Hello and welcome to my Skyrim Magic tier list. So let's talk about the different magics and what tier they belong in. So our tiers are S tier for sweet roll, A tier for apple pie, B tier bread, C tier cabbage, D tier dog, and P tier potato. So the potato is the worst. Alright, so let's go over all of them, starting with the best, which would be, in vanilla Skyrim, Conjuration. So we'll put this at S tier, because it's arguably the best form of magic in the game, and it's also quite overpowered. So why is Conjuration S tier? You can summon things that do not take increased damage on higher difficulties and do not deal decreased damage. So they take base and deliver base damage. That is the main benefit. So you can create like Dremora Lords and like powerful Atronachs and all these things. You can have 2 of them at a time. Enemies will attack them while you attack the enemies. They're like crowd control, they're damage. You can spam them, you can cast them out of combat, you can get permanent ones. This is just objectively like the best form of magic in the game. You can run it on anything. Like you can be a warrior running like Atronachs with like low investment in magic and conjuration just to like you cast it out of combat, regen quickly, and then start fighting things, and it's very viable. It's definitely the best. In A tier, I'm going to put Destruction. So Destruction is really good in the early game, and then it falls off in the late game just due to like damage. So let me reset this book here and drag it over. So with the right perks and with the right level of enchanting and passives, you can make destruction spells free, like with all magic. This is where it becomes good late game, where you just constantly are casting things for free. If you just spam a bunch of fireballs and chain lightnings and things at enemies and it costs you nothing, that's actually quite good, so that's definitely A tier. It's not as good as Conjuration, because Conjuration's damage output and utility is insane. It has both damage output and crowd control, so it's just very strong. And plus you can get bound weapons, which are decent and require minimal investment before they start dealing good damage, so you don't have to like spec into smithing. So that's where we're at so far. So the next is Restoration. I'm going to put this at B tier, or bread tier. So Restoration is good on every build. You can heal yourself. That's its primary purpose. It's really good for not dying, essentially. That can restore stamina. So it's great on melee builds. It's great on mage builds. Wards aren't bad because you can time, like if you have Ward Absorb, you can time your ward so that as a spell's about to hit you or an enemy's casting a spell on you, you can use your ward to absorb magicka from the incoming spell, so you can maintain magicka with it. You can also get a passive that increases the amount it heals. You can get a passive that increases magical effects versus undead, which combos well with vampire builds. It has a lot of use cases. It's just really strong. All of these are good when you main them and when you splash them. You wouldn't really main Restoration because you can't deal a lot of damage with it to non-undead, but you would probably run it with some form of offense. So if you just used only Restoration with like physical damage, like archery, like an assassin build, whatever, that would be the use case for maining that. Then next, for cabbage tier, we have, I would say, let's see, I would say Alteration. Actually, we're gonna skip cabbage tier. We're going to go straight to dog tier. So let's take Alteration and give it to the dog. So Alteration is decent, but it's not very strong. So the main thing it does is it has different effects that aren't insanely powerful. It can increase magic resistance and give you some armor. It's especially good for giving mages armor that are wearing robes with its mage armor perks. However, once you hit like master level Alteration, you basically wasted perks, because the best mage armor ability spell gives you just straight up 80% damage reduction versus physical. So it requires you to invest all the way into its skill tree in order to get this. So if you want armor as a mage, essentially Alteration is your armor. So there's like light armor, heavy armor, and then Alteration. You can also spec into it casually to get the magic resistance, which isn't bad. That's probably its best use case. You can get this from enchanting though. Like you get magic resistance from enchanting, so that's probably the best way of doing that. But if you want armor as a mage, the only way to get it really is alteration, unless you want to spec into light or heavy armor, which you can do. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's not it's not nearly as useful as the top three. And then finally for potato tier, we have illusion. So illusion has powerful effects that are great when they work, but are useless when they don't. And it requires 100% investment in order for it to be good. If you're a level 30 like archer or level 30 like warrior or something like that, or any kind of melee build, and you want to just casually run illusion and like spec like a few perks into it, you can't. You have to max it out. And the reason you have to max it out, and this is an illusion character by the way, is you need to get all of these perks that increase the level of calm spells, increase the level of fear spells, increase the level of frenzy spells. You need to get kindred mage so it can work on high level people. You need to get animage so it works on high level animals. You need to become a vampire. Like it's a pain in the ass. It's not good. The effects aren't bad, but they don't work on high level enemies. You can dual cast to increase the level of things they will affect. There are some enemies that just cannot be affected by this at all. Frenzy seems like it's good on paper, but if the spell fails, you waste magicka, then you have to dual cast it. Then when it succeeds, it doesn't always work the way you want it to. A lot of times, frenzied enemies will still pursue you, and their allies will start attacking them if they're close enough. If you're far away enough, they'll start attacking each other, but that's not always the case. Fear is probably the best illusion spell because it's at least consistent. Enemies just run away from you, and you can just kill them, but like, what are you going to kill them with? Frenzy? Like, you have to hit them with something. So illusion is basically just like a waste of time. I mean, invisibility is decent, but when I ran sneak builds, I never needed invisibility. Just basic positioning is good enough. Distance and positioning are all you need. Like, there's really no reason to run illusion. Muffle is bad because guess what? There's thief boots and Dark Brotherhood boots that give you constant muffle, so that's useless. The only thing going for it really is fear, I would say. Frenzy is okay, but like I said, it's inconsistent. And one-on-ones, Frenzy is useless because it does nothing. Fear is okay, but now you have to kill them. So it's like, okay, do I want to fear or frenzy things, or just summon some powerful thing that will just constantly distract enemies and kill them for me? Which is better? And also, which is cheaper? The Conjuration is actually cheaper. If you invest into both, the Conjuration spell, like getting a Dremora Lord is cheaper than casting a high-level Frenzy. Like, getting Atronachs is super cheap late game. You can just spam the shit out of Atronachs and then hit them. Like, you could spam, like, Storm Atronachs, which will approach enemies. Enemies will crowd around them. You can use Chain Lightning on the Atronach, and it will bounce to all the enemies. And the Atronach has 100% resistance to shock, takes no damage, will not aggro against you, and you can just wail on that thing all day with Chain Lightnings, and it will just zap all the foes near it. So you can use Atronachs like lightning rods, like literal lightning rods. Like, these two are very fun to run. They're very dynamic, and like illusion with mods can be good. Like, there's a mod that makes it so the spells just always work, but then it only can affect a foe once per combat. I highly recommend looking into perk overhauls to make illusion good, but in vanilla Skyrim, it costs a lot of magicka. You get better effects from just having a summon than just like calming. Like, calm isn't very good. I would say calm and rally are essentially useless aside from just leveling illusion. Calm can be used to make something stop fighting you, but guess what? A summon kind of does that too. So it's just not very strong. And then also, in terms of control, frost magic slows foes down and drains their stamina. So like, it doesn't even make sense to run it to run illusion, because with just frost magic you can control foes, unless they're immune to frost, of course. But if they're immune to frost, then just you hit them with fire magic, and they probably have a weakness to fire, and there you go. Like just basic, like, surprisingly, destruction has a lot of control. Like, even just the chain lightning combo I had mentioned, that's actually really viable. Like, especially when you get your enchanting up and your destruction spells are free, that's viable endgame. Like, you just zap everything. There's other things you can do too, like you can use the master level spell and just like nuke things, but you can have like 2 Storm Atronachs or like 2 Dremora Lords. Like, it's insane. Like, this is so good. So yeah. So that's my tier list. Alteration can be good with mods too. Perk overhauls fix both Alteration and Illusion. With perk overhauls, I would say the tier list looks like this. Actually, this probably stays. This is probably closer to like A tier. There's perk overhauls that make Alteration very good. So with perk overhauls, this is what the game looks like with your average perk overhaul, because once Destruction gets damage scaling, it becomes better than S tier. It becomes S+. It becomes like, I don't know. I don't even know what you would put here, but it literally is the best form of magic with a basic mod that increases its damage. The reason for this is once your spells are very cheap or free, and you're just like unloading ice storms, chain lightnings, fireballs on things, like they just can't. It just wipes out things. There's nothing they can do about it. They just die so fucking fast. It'll blow your mind. So yeah, that's my tier list. This is the tier list for overhauls. Without overhauls, the tier list is this. D is dog tier, by the way. So this is in between cabbage and potato, which is like F tier. So this is without mods. Alright, so that's my magic tier list. Let me know if you think anything should be changed, if something should be higher or lower. This is vanilla Skyrim tier list. Illusion, I rated so low just because you can get control-like effects from both Destruction and Conjuration while you're also dealing damage to foes, which is just objectively better. The problem with Illusion is it requires heavy investment into Illusion, and then it of itself does not deal damage. A lot of Illusion builds that I see people running, they like rely on their companion to deal damage, and it's like, what's the point? Like, just get a bunch of just summon some big shit, and like have a companion, a summoner, so that you have a companion, they have a summon, and then you summon things, and then also you attack things with Destruction or like a bow or something, and that's like, you should have no trouble beating the game on Legendary using that strategy. So yeah, Conjuration is definitely better. So that's the end of this video. I'll see you in the next one.